So welcome everybody to Webinar Wednesday from Sight and Sound Technology, here for yet another week for the 9th of September. Hope everybody's remaining to stay safe and well. Delighted to be joined again after a 2-week break by Carl Braley, who's back with us. Carl, welcome back. Hope it was a nice one. And Sharon Lyons from Sight and Sound Technology is also with us as well. We'll be going over to Sharon in just a second. Today, Eric from Vispero is with us. Eric Damery, of course, from Vispero, is with us to talk all things JAWS. We're going to be hearing about Eric's essentials, some of the essential tips and keystrokes that Eric recommends that every JAWS user should know in order to maximize your productivity when using the JAWS screen reader. And if that wasn't enough, we're going to take a glimpse into JAWS 2021. What's coming up in this year's exciting software release? Eric's going to tell us all, but you have to wait a while. We're not going to tell you just now. So stay with us, and Eric will be talking about 2021 later in the session. Now, we know that there's lots of people who I'm sure have questions and would like to get in touch. You can do that if you wish on Zoom. If you want to chat by pressing Alt and H if you're on a PC, Command and H if you're on a Mac, or if you're on a mobile application, you can activate the chat option. And you can raise your hand with Alt and Y on a PC, Command and Y on a Mac, or on a mobile application, you can activate the raise hand option. And Carl will be keeping an eye on our raised hand and chat windows. When or if you are called upon to speak, if you have a question, we would appreciate that you would keep your question as short as possible. There's lots of people at this session, and I've no doubt lots of people will want to get involved today. Now, just before I hand over to Sharon Lyons, who's going to do a little preamble to today's session, I just want to remind you that next week's Webinar Wednesday, we're actually going to rerun last week's session on Google. If you remember, we had a couple of, let's just say we had some technical glitches. I think that's probably enough to say. So Sharon is going to rerun her very exciting session next week, all about some Google goodness. And we'll be talking all about Google services and how they work with JAWS and other technologies. So that's next Wednesday, and the information to subscribe and sign up for that session will be posted in the next day or so. Keep an eye on our social media channels, our mailing list, and our weekly newsletter for more information on that. I'm looking forward to a really engaging session this afternoon. It's always brilliant when we do these sessions. And Eric, thank you so much. I should add that I think we asked Eric to do this just over a week ago. And within less than an hour, he had replied and said, of course I will. So Eric, thank you sincerely for giving us your time today. We're looking forward to a great session. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Sharon Lyons, who's going to introduce Eric with a little preamble. So Sharon.
Hi, hello everybody, and a big welcome to Eric, and thanks for that, Stuart. Yes, I just wanted to say a few words about Mr. JAWS, as he's called. Eric's been Vice President of Software Product Management for over 26 years in Vispero, and I just wanted to say that we really missed you not coming over to see us this year, Eric, and I know you did too. It's been great to all get together over here, and obviously it wasn't going to be meant to be this year, but it means a lot to us that you would, like one of the main people in Vispero, would be over in our little corner of the world and be so interested in how we're getting on with our technology. You always want to hear about the issues that people have. You're always ready to offer some great advice and some great shortcuts for things. And you're also very honest about sometimes when the software has its limits, and ready to go back to the team and solve any bugs that maybe people have come across. So we're really grateful that you're here today. But I also just wanted to say that I remember going back a few years ago when you came to visit us, Eric, and you were introducing the layer shortcuts, you know, the insert and space. And I remember thinking at the time, oh gosh, another layer of stuff? why are they overcomplicating all of this? And you know, I wasn't convinced at the start, but then the yearly kind of talks that Eric has done, and you showed us the different layered shortcuts, and I use them all the time now. They're just so intuitive. So that was you, Eric. You convinced me about the whole layer shortcuts, and I kind of write down different ones each year, and I get used to using them. But every time I learn a new one and a really useful tip. So I really appreciate that, Eric. You won me over with the layer shortcuts. So you're very welcome here today.
Well, it's great to be with you all, and thank you for the introduction. Thank you for Sight and Sound for hosting these things every week. I know that people, especially today with COVID, are loving to join into it. It's funny you mentioned the layered keys, and I went through the same metamorphosis that you did with layered keys, because the suggestion came to me from Access Tech in Switzerland, our distributor in Switzerland, who said there's just got to be, you know, we're going to need more keystrokes, and there's got to be easier ways to do things. And they had made this suggestion, and that came in, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And so we got them introduced, and I'll spend a little bit of time, you know, kind of talking about the concept and why it matters and why things will change periodically, because sometimes these keystrokes kind of go out of favor and you just don't necessarily need a command anymore, but we need a keystroke, so we're going to change things. So you'll see those things happen from time to time. And also, Stuart, to you, it's you were the one that approached me. I think we might have even been at Site City,
right,
in Germany, in Frankfurt, a number of years ago, and Stuart said, you know, Ireland's not big, but we like our jaws. And he said, you should plan on coming here. And I had never been to Ireland, and I was thrilled for the opportunity to go, and having somebody there that really knows the product and is passionate about the product as you were, made it a no-brainer to want to participate. And so I was thrilled to go, and I've always visited with Sight and Sound in the UK, so to be able to coordinate it and get to Ireland has been fantastic, and I look forward to coming many more times. So it's good to be here this morning with everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. We have been busy as usual. You know, a lot of people think that we sit around and at some point during the year we decide we're going to do a new release. Well, the reality is we're working on this thing constantly. We're constantly in flux at the office. We do builds almost daily, and we're always trying to get it just right and then make sure that we don't put anything out that creates any problems, and hopefully solve some things along the way. So the team has been very busy working on just general maintenance for 2020 releases and preparing for the 2021 cycle. As most people know, but I'll just cover this for the group, we each year in the October time frame, we release next year's version. And when I say next year's version, you do have to have authorization to participate in the newer versions, because our licenses are currently sold as a perpetual license. If you don't have an SMA in place, you would have to buy an upgrade to get access to that new version. So October is really the cutoff here. If you are someone who has 2020 and you do not have an SMA in place, I encourage you to reach out to Sight and Sound or whoever your distributor or dealer is, depending on where you live. I know there's a lot of folks outside of the UK on this particular webinar today. So wherever you are, double check. You can look at your About box and see if you have an SMA available. If you don't, consider getting that lined up before the October release, because the cost goes up significantly once the 2021 is shipping if you don't have the SMA. For those of you who also pay attention, you might know that we tend to do a public beta for the new version, and this year is no exception. we will be coming out with a public beta as soon as tomorrow. I'm pretty confident that we're going to get it posted. We had actually hoped that today would be the day. Something came up last week with one of the new features that we're working on, and we went back to the drawing board to make a change over the weekend. The crew worked right through the weekend to get everything done and tested, and we're back on track. So I believe we will make the post tomorrow. And later today, your evening in the UK, you'll be able to go to our homepage, the Freedom Scientific homepage, and you'll find the write-up. So the things that I discuss during the webinar here in a little bit on the features, you'll be able to go in and kind of get a reminder of what they are. And I encourage people to do that. Don't wait for the software to come out, download it, and then think you'll go read it. Go read it first, because sometimes it takes a while for some of these things to sink in. So we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the 2021 release shortly. But I want to come back to 2020 or even earlier versions. One of the first things I would point out to people is staying up to date with not only your screen reader or screen magnification software, but your applications on your computer and your operating system in particular. Keeping these things up to date is critical now more than ever because things are in flux. They're changing all the time. We are constantly running into issues where things stop working if you don't. I'll give you an example. A change was made in the Microsoft Windows 10 2004 update that came out, and it started to release to the general public first, and that started to hit somewhere around April, May, in June timeframes, and many people started getting it and reporting issues with ZoomText 2020 or it was 2019, was the 2019 version, and they started reporting these problems in June as that 2004 version got installed on their PCs. And it happens overnight, they don't even know it, and then they wake up in the morning and now ZoomText isn't working anymore. We had made a correction in 2020 back in January or February in preparation for their future release, but it didn't get rolled back into a 2019 update. So when the 2004 came out of Windows 10, the 2019 ZoomText had problems. We went back and fixed it in July and posted an update. But again, if they had stayed on 2020, you'd have never seen it. So try and keep up to date with everything is the advice I would give. And this is true for Office. Now, for those of you who are saying, well, I think I do stay up to date, you shouldn't have to do anything. Your computer should just do it. But if you want to double check, the first tip I would give you, and I use this all the time, open the Start menu, press the Windows key, type WINVER, WinVer, and press Enter. And this will pop up a dialog that you can then read with JAWS or Fusion or ZoomText or whatever you're running, and it will show you what version of Windows 10 you're running. Hopefully you're running Windows 10. If you're not running Windows 10, I would suggest you look at getting into Windows 10 and do it soon. The current release of Windows 10 is version 2004. The 20 stands for 2020. The 04 stands for it was their April version. The one before 2004 was 1909. It came out 2019 September. Before that, I think it was 1903, and then it goes back to 1809, 1803, 1709. You could see the cycle they were on. They were on a 3-month cycle, a 6-month cycle, and I think they're extending that out a little bit now. But these versions, sometimes they don't update. There was some problems between 1809 and 1903 that things did not get updated correctly. So if you check with WinVer, make sure you're on 2004. If you're a home user and it's your own PC, If you're not on 2004 and you do a check for updates and it doesn't fix it, then you may have to go and search for Windows 10 download and install the whole thing right over top. And I've had 2 computers where I had to do that. So it's not unusual. If you get stuck, you can probably reach out to the Microsoft Accessibility Desk for some help, either electronically or if you're in the States, you can call them and they'll be more than happy to help you out. They would like to see you get updated as well. The other place is Office. If you have not moved to Office 365, I would encourage you to consider this. Things will be always in flux in Office, and they're constantly pushing updates for it. But I think the accessibility especially is going to remain the highest if you can get up to date and stick with it, and it'll continue to change as well. So in that one, I go in Microsoft Word, I go under Accounts and check for updates, and it gets it. You can set your computer up so that it'll update Microsoft apps when you update Windows. I never have any confidence in that actually working, so I usually go to both and do both those updates. And I do them regularly. I mean, I check once a month. These things should work in the background, but I'm always checking. Now, something else that's recently changed in 2019, or 2020 versions of our software, and I just want to make you aware of this. If this applies to anyone who is in the English-speaking market. So if you're running the English version of JAWS Fusion or ZoomText, we released an update in August. And I hope you installed that update. And if you did, when the 2021 releases, the official releases, not the beta, but the official release hits somewhere around October 27th, you would get one of those announcements. If you were running JAWS 2020 or ZoomText 2020, an announcement would pop up and say, hey, there's a new version available, not just an update. It'll tell you about the new version. And if you're not authorized for it currently, in other words, whatever your authorization key is not set for 2021, it'll let you know to consider updating your authorization if you're going to install that. If you're already authorized for it, it'll just tell you the new version's available and give you access to go and get it immediately. So this is something we've added in. We've always told you about in-version updates. We've never told you about upgrades. You had to get informed and go find them. And so this year we're changing that. But you must have installed the August 2020 update in order to get that announcement. So make sure you got that. Now let's go and talk about a couple of things, and let's start with our layered commands. Let's explain this in a little more detail. As most users know, there's a few keystrokes involved in running Access technology on a PC. You know, JAWS in general assumes that you do not use a mouse. It assumes you do not see the screen. And so you're driving Windows with keyboard commands. And many things are standards. They've been around for years. Cut, copy, paste, Control C, Control X, and Control V. Those are Windows commands. And then there are screen reading commands. Things like Insert T to read a window title, or insert down arrow to do a say all. Or if you're on a numeric keypad, you can use the insert up arrow or 8 on the numeric keypad to read the current line. Those are screen reading commands. So there's Windows keyboard commands, there's screen reading commands. And then there are feature commands inside of JAWS. Things like insert F1 to get context-sensitive help. If you open your start menu, and if you haven't done some of these things before and you're listening to this, especially as a recording, you can pause this and try a few of the things I'm going to tell you. But insert F1 is going to give you a context-sensitive help message to help you remind yourself as to what you're supposed to be doing when you're in a particular location. I encourage trainers to always share insert F1, insert H, some of these commands with their students when they ask you, what am I supposed to be doing, or what's the keystroke for this, you don't want to tell them what the keystroke is. You want to tell them how to find the keystroke. So when you're moving through a dialog box, insert F1 will tell you, if you're on a checkbox, what you're supposed to be able to do with it. If you open the Start menu and do an insert F1, it will tell you what the Start menu is and how you navigate it. Those are basic commands. That's the first thing I learned in screen reading, even before Windows. I believe we had context-sensitive help back in the DOS days, and that was critical to my learning, and I think others should be aware of it. Some of the other helpful keystrokes in JAWS, insert H is a command that we put in from day one, and that was to help you learn hotkeys for that are screen reading hotkeys for wherever you are. So it's context sensitive, and if we've made special keystrokes, you should find them there. And if you find a case where you know there's a JAWS keystroke and we're not telling you about it, that's a good thing to report to us. Tell us. And sometimes we have to keep up with it. And I'll give you an example. One of the questions that came in from someone was about Zoom. They had asked a question about all of the people coming in and out of the Zoom session while the session was going on, and they were looking for, how do I get it to stop announcing all of that? I don't care who's coming and going. I'm trying to listen to the webinar. Well, if you're in Zoom and you press Insert H, the keystroke right on top tells you about that. And I can't think of the keystroke off the top of my head. Maybe Sharon, you can check what that is and chime in. But if you do an Insert H during a Zoom webinar, you'll see that keystroke right on top of the list. Insert W is another command like Insert H, but it targets the application keystroke. So many applications come with their own keyboard commands, and we try and share those to you, and you'll see that in Microsoft Word. You'll learn a lot of different keystrokes that are Word-specific keystrokes there. Layered commands came in because we just basically ran out of keystrokes, and we wanted to simplify the solution to do certain things. And I've always tried to consider layered commands targeting features opposed to targeting screen reading. So it really should be bringing up features. And since the idea is you press insert spacebar and you'll hear a sound trigger, and you'll get used to this the more you use it. And that sound indicates that you're now in a layer, so that the next keystroke, and sometimes series of keystrokes, will perform things for you in this layer that they would not otherwise if you weren't in the layer. So I'll give you an example to one of the best features. Insert space and the letter J. Hold down the insert key, tap space, and then press J by itself, and it puts you into the JAWS command search. Excuse me for 1 second. Thought I had a sneeze, so I muted. So the JAWS command search is like a Google search for JAWS features. So later, when you install the new version of 2021 and you're trying to remember some feature that we talk about that may be available in 2021, and you want to see if there are keystrokes associated with it, what they might be, you can do insert space J, and then you can start typing text in. Like you would do a Google search, you can do a search in JAWS with that feature. After you've typed in a few letters, if you hit the tab key, you can navigate down through all of the different things in JAWS that we found for you associated to the text that you had typed. And so sometimes you have to dig a little deeper, but I use this feature all the time because I can't remember all the keystrokes either. And especially if I'm in a place like Microsoft Excel and I'm trying to remember, well, what's the command around columns and reading a column? I just want to be able to get that information. If I do, while I'm in Excel, insert space J and then type COL, I will find any column reading feature that JAWS offers to me while I'm in Excel. Another good place to do this would be on web pages, especially if you're someone who's dealing with a lot of tables. When you get inside of a table, do the insert space J and type in table, and you'll learn that there's all kinds of layered commands and other ways of navigating and reading within that table that are very useful. And this is where you can really improve your efficiency, your speed, and get a lot more out of your computer and your time on the computer than you would otherwise. I still see and talk to a lot of people who simply down arrow constantly, or they learn one thing, like on web pages. Maybe they learn how to navigate with an H or a P, and they just stick to those commands all the time. There's other things out there, and you want to experiment with them and learn. So spend a little bit of time, and it does take some time to do that. I'm going to give you another example of a command. I just used this the other day, and I had forgotten about it. Insert 4 on the number row. If you hold down the JAWS key and press the letter 4 on the number row on your keyboard, wherever you are, it'll bring up a list of symbols that are available to you to insert into a document. So we all know how to type a left paren or a right paren or a question mark. But if you had to type in a acute, or you had to type in some bizarre symbol that is not on the keyboard, you have to know a series of numbers to be able to insert that, maybe a registered trademark or a copyright symbol. And you can use that symbols list to pop those right in. It's a very nice command, insert 4 on the number row. And again, if you wanted to find out about that one, and I haven't tried this, but I'm guessing if you do an insert space J and type in SYM symbol, you'll find that command right there in the command search. So if there's something you're trying to accomplish, always fall back to the command search to see if you can locate the keystroke to do it. And one other feature I want to talk about that's been existing in JAWS for a long time, that I know power users take advantage of this all the time, and so I like to mention it in meetings like this so that others will take advantage of it, and that's the history feature in JAWS. It's a great feature. I'll remember when we put it in, there's a developer in the company named James Datrey, who's been with us for many, many years, did tech support for a while, and then became a script writer, and is one of our, and is now actually moved into the internals and is developing inside the code of JAWS, not just script writing. But James, I remember one day sitting in his office, and he popped up this feature where he was able to go and capture exactly what JAWS had said previously. And I said, what is that? And he said, oh, this is a script I use. As he was coding, he would always want to go back and capture exactly what JAWS had spoken for whatever it was he was coding. It would help him. And I said, James, that is a phenomenal feature, and I think everyone would like it. And so he crafted a document. We created this history feature, and it was all done through scripting. And the way it works, it's a layered command, insert space, the letter H, and it pops up the results viewer. And in the results viewer, you'll find 50 lines of text. Those are the last 50 strings sent to the synthesizer from JAWS or from Fusion. If you're running Fusion, you can get it as well. And if you move to the bottom, you'll find the most recent things it said, and you can select, copy, and paste that information to take it with you. So it's very useful if you're reading a dialog box, for instance, where there's an error dialog and the program doesn't provide for you a way to select and copy it. And a lot of sighted people would do a print screen and send it to a sighted person, but you might want to send the actual text of the error message in a report to somebody. So use the history command after you've read the information to then copy and paste and send it in an email message. Great tool. I also like it if I'm trying to recall addresses or phone numbers and, JAWS has read them and I want to copy and paste it. And I can't remember where it was exactly, but I know it just read it recently, so you can go back and find it that way. So great feature. Now, I've referred to the layered command several times, and the layered commands are going to come into play as you start to look at 2021. You should be aware of the question mark feature in the layered commands, because I couldn't tell you them all, but I would just teach you that one thing. So if you do an insert space and then press a question mark, it will populate the results viewer for you with all of the various layered commands available to you at that level of the layer. So if you're on the top level, it'll share with you all the top level things. And when I say top level, if you do insert space question mark, you'll find one for the letter O is the Convenient OCR command. But if you did insert space and then O and then do the question mark, you'll find all of the commands in the level of OCR, so you'll find all the things related to OCR right there. And it's useful to get a handle on this. So if you haven't done a lot of the layered commands, take advantage of the question mark. You'll learn something that you didn't know that's available to you in there. With that, I think I'll pause for a minute. Let's see if there are any questions that have come in or if they want to bring anything up, and we can come back to this.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Really, really great presentation so far. We do have some hands raised. I know we have some comments in the chat, and we also have some questions that we received by email, which we'll go over to Sharon for maybe in a couple of minutes. But just for now, I'm going to hand over to Carl, who's looking at the raised hands and chat. And Carl, how are we getting on?
Firstly, Julian Napier said, please come to Liverpool, Eric. Let me know when you're here and I'll put the kettle on.
Fabulous.
Dean Mills, will you be ever looking at changing to the annual license in the UK like you do in the US?
Yes, we're looking at getting the portal license expanded out to other markets and to all of our products, the Pro products included. These are things that take time. We have to get it right, and there are several steps along the way. So we are proceeding down, looking at what is the best way to get it rolled out. We do intend on getting everyone into the portal eventually, where you can manage your license. It is a good solution for those of you who haven't heard about it. It works very much like Office 365, where you can move your license on and off of a machine. And one of the other nice things about the portal is that if you go and activate a new computer, it will automatically get the latest and greatest software and install it on there for you. So yeah, we are looking to expand that.
Excellent. So I'm just being attacked by a wasp. Sorry about that. Very professional. What was the command for the history again, please?
Well, insert space, and then if you do a question mark, you'll learn what all the layered commands are, and the history one is in there. And I'll let you guess what letter we might have associated with history.
Yay.
Okay.
Okay, do we want to go to a few of the raised hands, Carl?
Hang on, yeah.
Carl is battle. He's doing battle with a wasp.
Carl has a wasp issue.
Oh, it's not an issue anymore. Trust me. I'm sorry for all the vegans and everything else on here, but he got it.
Remind people they can.
I see a great question. Let me read this one. It came in on the list.
Okay.
How do you switch off the word space announcement when writing text? So you're going along, you've got character echo set, you're typing, and you hit the space bar and it says space, or you hit the tab key and it says tab. Is there a way to get rid of that stuff? And yes, there is. A feature that I used to show all the time, and I haven't shown it much lately. But if you go in, and I should probably go and test this, but if you go into Manage Key Labels, go to the Settings Center and search for Key Labels or Manage, and you'll find the command, and it'll pop up a dialog box, and you'll find all of the different actions in there, and space is one of them. The other one I like to turn off is return, so I don't have to hear it say enter or return. So you can go in and find the word space, and if you hit the space bar when you find that word, it'll toggle it to mute. And then from that point forward, when you're typing, you won't hear that letter. And I preferred it this way. I've always had character echo on. I was used to it, but I like to get rid of we actually got rid of tab by default now completely, so that like if you're on a web page and you're tabbing, or you're holding down the Alt key and you're tabbing between applications, you don't hear it say Alt Tab anymore. And that was because we muted that tab key by default, I believe, a couple of years back. So that was a good question.
Excellent. We're going to go some hands then. We've got, oh, Stuart.
Yeah.
My
you're trying to let someone speak?
It won't let me actually allow them to chat, so I don't know what rights
I
I've
think
got.
what happens is
Carl. We'll sort this out.
Stuart's revoked my privileges.
Sorting this as we speak. So just while we're doing that, reminder, you can raise your hand with Alt and Y if you wish on a PC, or you can do Command and Y if you're on a Mac. And we're going to now set Carl up so he can do this stuff. Should have done this already. Right, Carl, you should be sorted.
There we
My
go.
apologies, sincere apologies.
Right, Paul Clayton, it's you on top of the list, sir. You just need to unmute yourself, please.
Space. Audio now on Zoom webinar.
Hiya, Paul.
Hey there, how you doing?
Paul.
How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. Great presentation, really enjoying it. Working with two computers today because I'm working from a home computer and so I'm taking notes on the laptop, but really good. Just one question around the layered commands all the time, particularly the insert space S to disable speech for team meetings and everything. But a few versions ago, JAWS changed it. It used to say speech on, speech off, and it now says speech
Yes. Yeah, so let me talk about that. So we've always had the ability in JAWS to mute your speech. You could mute it or you could unmute it. When it was muted, nothing would be spoken. Well, there was a feature that we originally had come up for our magnification software, Magic. And this was one I pushed for because I was convinced that people who either A, used Braille primarily, or B, had vision like myself that liked to use the screen reader but maybe didn't want it to always be speaking, or C, they were low vision consumers who would want JAWS quality capabilities and navigation and speech, but only when they actually needed to use it. And the feature we created was called Speech on Demand. So when you do an insert space S now, it toggles you between full speech and speech on demand by default. Speech on demand says JAWS should not speak as you're navigating, but if you do a screen reading command or ask it something like what time is it or what is the window title, it will give it to you. So speech on demand is nice because you can be in a meeting and you can have access to listen to something if you need to with a say line or a say all or check the time or do something like that. But for the most part, your speech stays silent. And if you're using a Braille display, you just use your Braille display to get around it. It can work really well. Now, if you're someone who would never want speech ever, and for whatever reason, you press keystrokes periodically that cause it to speak for you, first of all, let us know what that keystroke is, because if it should only speak on specific screen reading commands. So I think speech on demand should work for just about everybody. But if it doesn't, if you truly want mute, you can go into the settings center, search for the word mute, and there is a choice in there where you can tell it that insert space should hit mute opposed to speech on demand. There's a way to set that up. And support can help you with it too. But I'm glad you asked. Speech on demand is a great feature, especially for somebody who's got some vision and just doesn't need as much speech. And it's a toggle. So if you're a JAWS user and you just want to try this out, try it out. Do insert space and then the letter S, and now you'll seem to have no speech. But if you do a say line, it'll read. So it's there. It's just not going to speak as you navigate. Okay.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right, 1 second. Mitch, if you just unmute yourself, Mitch, please. That should be it. Hello?
And we've a lot of hands raised, guys. So if we can keep the questions as quickly as you can, and we'll try and get through as many of these.
Mitch, you got unmuted and then you got muted again.
You muted yourself. That's it. You're all clear, Mitch.
There you go. Hi, Mitch. Well, Mitch, your connection is working, so maybe your microphone is not.
Working, yeah.
We're just going to pause you for a minute, Mitch, if you don't mind, and just quickly move on to the next one, just while you get yourself set up. Andrew Summers. Andrew.
Hello, Andrew. How's Glasgow?
Andrew in Glasgow. Regular webinar Wednesday attendee.
He's so excited he can't unmute either.
He's shaking with anticipation.
You know, we have. Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Nice.
There
How
he
are
is.
you?
Hi, Andrew.
No, you're talking. You're there, Andrew.
We're going to have to skip you and go right to Ann Hamilton if you're not careful.
You're very low.
Okay, so Andrew's mic is working, his speaker is not.
Okay.
Right, Andrew, we'll get back to you in a second. Right, there's another one gone. Ahmed, this one's all yours. If you could just unmute yourself, please.
Oh, hi. Hi, can
there.
you hear me?
We
Yes,
can,
we
yeah.
can.
Yeah, great session, and thank you for Eric for the great work. I've got two questions. One is when you are in Facebook or YouTube, there are keystrokes that is allowing, for example, in YouTube to mute or to forward or anything. So with JAWS, it doesn't work. Certain keystrokes does not work. Like for example, if you press K for when you have to turn off the virtual cursor. So did they enable in the latest version of JAWS? My second question is related to Arabic language. When you are in using vocalizer, the Arabic vocalizer, and you are in Notepad, and you're trying to read a document, the Arabic synthesizer does not read anything, the vocalizer. So
Just in Notepad?
In Notepad, yes, and also the names of the files if they are written in Arabic. But when they are in the internet, it's fine. The automatic language switching works fine.
Ah, okay. So it's the automatic language switching that's not in Notepad or Windows Explorer.
Yeah, it's just only the Notepad and the Windows Explorer.
Yeah. So and you're all up to date. Everything is current.
Yeah, 2020.
Okay. So I thought we had done something so that Notepad would do that switching, and it doesn't switch the same way. We're working on a solution that doesn't require markup like we use in Word and in the HTML content. We're working on something to be able to do that differently. So I don't know what the answer is on this one. If you would send an email to me on that particular issue, edamery@vispero.com, I'll see what I can do to track down the answer on that one. And I'm sorry, I've already lost the first question. Can you remind me what the first question is?
Yeah, the first question is the web keystrokes. When you are in Facebook or YouTube, why do we need to turn off the visual cursor rather than having the visual cursor on and then the keystrokes working fine?
Yeah, so I think I understand what the question is, and I also understand what the issue is. In Facebook, for instance, when you would go on to the Facebook, you're talking about in the app or on the web page itself?
The web page.
So when you go to a Facebook web page, years ago, Facebook introduced their own keystrokes.
Yes.
And of course, we would have virtual cursor turned on when you're in the Facebook web page, and we would expect that you would do that so that you could move by headings and things like that. But they have things that they wanted to be able to move to, different articles
Correct.
and positions on their web page, and their keystrokes to do it would conflict with ours. J was one, for instance, that I recall that I used to want to use, and of course that did our jump to line, which conflicted with it.
Yeah.
So we got together with Facebook, and they created some special markup that would show up on their web page that would be a trigger for the screen reader to be aware that their web page was loaded and they had specific keystrokes, and they would tell us in their markup, and we would allow those to pass through. And they made a change in June on the Facebook website. I believe Twitter is another page that has this, and they made a change so that they removed that special markup code that was really only being used by our company as far as I'm aware. And we went back to them in the middle of August or early August and pointed out to them what had happened, because we debugged it and found out that the code disappeared that we were using, and they are putting it back in. So if you're up to date and running in Chrome, I believe Facebook should be working now, and if it's not, it's going to be very shortly again. So that when you go to their web page, virtual cursor should be on, and you should not have to turn it off to
Is
be
that
able
the
to
same
use their
case?
keystrokes.
Is that the same case with the YouTube as well?
I think so, but if Facebook is working and YouTube is not, and YouTube used to, you can let us know. We may have to reach out to them
All
and
right.
get something.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Good
Thank you.
question.
Thank you, Ahmed. Right, now we have Mitch has asked his question in the chat. When is the FS cast going to be out for Jaws 2021?
So I think that Glenn has posted or will post an FS cast in the next week to 10 days probably, and he's going to do some demonstrations of some of these new features. So watch for the next FS cast that hits, and that should be the one that has demonstrations for the new features that we're going to be discussing a little bit here.
Brilliant. We're just going to motor through a couple more of these hands, and then we'll push on. Anthony Goff, it's all clear for you, sir. He's normally so.
Anthony, there he is.
There we go. All yours.
Hello, Eric.
Hi there.
Right, I have an L Braille, and when I learned Braille, there wasn't computer Braille or anything like that. And one of the things I found quite frustrating was, you think, how do I do / an @ sign? Is there any sort of chance that, you could put some help for some more common, Braille things that people know?
So some Braille input commands?
Yeah, like how do you do an @ sign? How do you do numbers in computer? It just would be useful if there was some somewhere.
Yes, that's a good question. Now, there is, obviously there's some documentation for this, but there is a great users list. Are you aware of the users list for the Braille?
Well, I vaguely have heard there is one.
There is one, and I would recommend that you join it. This is a good place to ask questions like the one you're asking, which I don't have the answer for. But it was started by Scott Erickson out of Australia, who is a power user and very familiar with JAWS. And I know there are quite a few people that are on that list, and the feedback they tell me has been fantastic. And I'll be darned if I know it off the top of my head, but Stuart, maybe you and I can follow up, and we'll find out what that users list is, and you can get that posted for people.
Yeah. The other very quick question I have is, I have the lady next door has JAWS, and she reads a lot of books. And one of the things she says she finds frustrating is that you can't stop and return to where you were in the viewer, that, you know, because it's, you know, you can't save where you were. Are there any plans to sort of do anything about it?
So like a bookmark for where she was reading in
Well,
the
yeah,
past?
or even just be able to bring it up after it, and it start again from where it left off after.
So if you, I don't know what application it is she's reading in, but if you stop.
She's just using the Pearl Camry without, you know, and just using the Jaws viewer thing.
So she's taking a picture of some page and having it read.
Of course, he's just OCRing the document, and it's just coming up in the Jaws viewer. And she says, you know, I keep turning pages.
So can you hang on to that one? Let's talk about let's talk about 2021 for a minute, if we can. We'll talk about a feature that's going to happen in 2021 that I think is going to make her life easier. So in 2021, Convenient OCR, which is always outputted directly to the results viewer, is going to give you an opportunity to output to Microsoft Word instead. So she would be able to take a picture of something and have it written straight into Microsoft Word. You'll be able to bring up a context menu to select and say acquire the text and send it to Word, opposed to acquire the text and send it to the results viewer. And so if she brings it up and reads it in Microsoft Word, when she stops reading with the control key, the cursor's right there, which I would think it would be with the results viewer. So I don't quite understand.
Yeah, I think she sort of goes away, comes back the next day, you know, and says, well, I've OCR'd this. I was reading it.
Right. So I think this is a case where she'd want to OCR it and save it into Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
And then keep it as a Word document. The other thing that we're going to do with 2021, those of you who use Convenient OCR a lot will notice it's going to do tables better. It's going to do columns better. We're changing the output to a later version of what we convert it to in HTML. So for those of you who have struggled with this, with alignment and things like that, especially in tables, when you do Convenient OCR, I think you're going to find improvements in the 2021 version of that.
Can I just come back in for a sec, Eric, in relation to Anthony, your query about the computer braille? If you want to send an email to sales@sightandsound.co.uk and just mark it for Stuart, it'll get sent on to me, and I will get you the computer braille signs you need, because I've sent them to lots of people lately. We've had lots of requests for those, and I'll also send you the info for the email list for the Braille.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks, Tony.
I think we're going to just move on with you and your talk, if okay, for the moment, Eric, and then we'll have to go back to some hands and questions in a moment. Otherwise, we're never going to get through, I don't think.
And we do have some emails as well that Sharon is we're going to try and get through. Some of these are very quick questions.
Well, so. Sharon, why don't we run through the email questions? I did see those earlier. Some I can answer and some I can't.
Okay, it helps if you unmute yourself, doesn't it? Okay. Yes, there was a question actually that you mentioned, Eric. The question on Zoom calls, if someone joins or leaves or makes a comment, Jaws reads it out. So the shortcut to stop that happening is Windows Alt S. So in Zoom, you can do Windows Alt S and it will stop it announcing whenever someone makes a comment. Although I think that's just in JAWS 2020, is that right?
I think that is just in 2020. And I think there was an issue with it and we ended up having to resolve it. So if it isn't working, make sure you're up to date on everything. It should be working. Yeah. And again, that is a JAWS command. So that is to stop it from making those kind of announcements. The things are still happening. It still pops up on screen, but we just ignore when the application sends us that stuff.
Right. That's very good to know. Also, just on the, we were talking about languages earlier. Someone was asking, how do I prevent JAWS from suddenly changing voice language when reading a document or website? So the content was in English, but JAWS started pronouncing in a foreign language.
Sure. So that's language switching, and JAWS is trying to watch for HTML markup And there are many people who are reading, maybe English is their default language, but they're on a web page and they've run across some Spanish text, for instance, and they have if you have a Spanish voice installed, like Vocalizer Expressive or maybe even Eloquence, it'll just use that. It'll switch to the Spanish synthesizer, read that text, and then switch back when that tag ends. And this can be annoying, especially in email messages. If you're communicating back and forth with someone in a foreign language, their language tags will show up in the email message. So even if they write to you in English, they're getting foreign language tags in the text, and JAWS is trying to switch to it. So if you want to turn that functionality off in JAWS while you're in the document or web page or wherever you might be, insert V for verbosity. It's a quick setting, and type in the word language and you'll find language detection there, and you can toggle that off. It's on by default.
Brilliant. Yep. And the same person also said, how do we quickly change speech, the echo between characters, words and characters and words?
Yeah, so that's a good one and leads to another 2021 feature I'll tell you about. Insert 2 on the number row lets you toggle between characters, words, or none. And someone had asked recently they would like to be able to toggle their punctuation between all, some, none. And we added a keystroke for that, insert shift 2. So if you hold down the insert key and the shift and hit the 2, it'll toggle your punctuation with the 2021 release. So insert 2 for characters, words, echo, and add the shift key for punctuation in the new release.
Yeah, that's very handy. And also a couple of questions related to one of my favorite shortcuts, which is occasionally JAWS turns itself off or seemingly goes mute, and you have to rely on someone sighted to open it and get it talking again. What's the shortcut that kind of resets?
Yeah, so let's talk about what's happening first of all. For whatever reason, a string, and JAWS, while JAWS used to read things by intercepting video and trying to piece together what was sent to the video and build what it called an off-screen model to be able to go back and read that text, those days are coming to an end rapidly, and we are now using information that's being sent to us from the application or operating system or both to be able to know when to speak something and when not to speak something. And sometimes these threads that get sent to us cause, I'm not sure the best way to describe it, but I think of it in terms of it gets clogged up. Things get jammed up, and all of a sudden, whatever's being sent can't get past it. So things have just gotten silent. Sometimes these things straighten themselves out and go away. Sometimes you can Alt-Tab to another window and come back, and it frees the thread up. But other times, there's nothing you can really do. And the command for unloading JAWS normally is the JAWS key, insert, and press the F4 key. Like you would do Alt F4 to exit an application, insert F4 would exit JAWS from anywhere. If you do the insert Windows key F4, it will shut JAWS down and it will restart it for you. And when it does that, the other thing that happens when you're doing that command is it's creating a crash log. It's creating a dump file for us that we might need in support to be able to pass to the developers, because especially if you find some pattern, some way to make JAWS stop speaking, and then do that dump command, it'll create those logs for us, and that could be very useful. Then you could send a email in or call support, let them know, here are the steps I do, here's what happens, and I've created crash logs, and then we would be able to get those from you. So this leads me to another 2021 feature I'd like to just share with you right now. Being able to capture these things, these logs, and what settings you've got that we don't have, and what versions of what applications and operating systems you're using that we don't know. Trying to get you to be able to go in and find all of that information can be time-consuming and troubling. It is for me, so I know it is for our users. And so we created something we call the FS support tool. And this is a feature that's going to be built into every JAWS, Zoom Text, and Fusion that the support people will ask you to go in and run, and it will extract from your computer all the different versions of the things that we need to know about, like the browser version and the Office version and the screen reader version and the Windows version. And I think it'll even get display adapter information, and it will capture and gather any of the crash logs that you may have created or had our screen reader create automatically. It'll package all of that up. It'll give you an opportunity to approve it and tell us your email address and send it to us. And it will go into a cloud repository where our support people would then be able to access it and open up a ticket for our engineers to review and look at. Now, this is going to really help speed up the process, especially across the ocean with gathering information and getting it into the developers quicker. It'll also make it much easier for you. But when this feature comes out in the 2021, when you see this in the new version, it doesn't mean you should just go run the support tool anytime something goes wrong and send that report in, because that's not the intent. The goal here is that the support guys are going to talk through what's going on, write up what's happening, and then attach your information if they've asked you for it to their record. So that's the FS support tool, and that's coming in 2021, and hopefully it'll help fix that. That was kind of a long answer to your question. The keystroke is insert Windows F4.
That's a good one to know. I like that one.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a couple more questions there, but I guess we ought to probably move on. Stuart, what do you think?
Yeah, maybe we'll move to you. We'll move on and we can come back to maybe some of the emails. And I know there's quite a few raised hands still, so we will get back to those. And we appreciate people bearing with us. So I think it's back to you, Eric.
Okay, so why don't I continue down our list? Let me just check my time here. 10:05. I think we're going to try and wrap up at 10:30. Let me talk about a few of the features in the 2021 version that'll come out. And again, I want to remind people to go to the Freedom Scientific homepage soon, and you'll be able to see that write-up for the new version that's going to come out. I'm just double checking right now to see if it's even made it. It hasn't made it yet, but it's going to be coming shortly. And we will post the new version as soon as tomorrow. I believe it should be able to get there at that time. There'll be a JAWS. Somebody's needs to be muted, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if somebody was unmuted from the question, so we'll
Carl is.
We'll look
that was me. I do apologise.
Sorry,
Carl.
Sorry, Carl. Okay, so if you want to install the public beta, a couple of ground rules on 2021 public beta. Like previously, if you have a 2020 authorization, the public beta will run with your authorization. You don't have to have the 2021 in place yet to use beta. When the final release comes out, if you don't have 2021 authorization in place, it'll fall back and run as a 40-minute demo. Tech support for the beta should be considered for installation and authorization. If you find something wrong, please don't call Sight and Sound support or any dealer or our office with technical questions other than authorization and installation. We'd rather you fill out the form, and there'll be a link to the beta form right on the What's New page for the public beta. So go back and find that form, and those are very helpful. Those go straight to our test department. They try and follow your steps and reproduce the issues and get these things entered. And the sooner we get them in, the sooner we get them resolved. And just because it's been going on, or you figure somebody else has probably submit it anyway. Sometimes the more times people submit the same thing over and over again, it helps to raise the priority up for fixing it. And while your issues may not get solved in the initial October release, doesn't mean they won't get solved. We come out with updates about every 6 weeks. So first thing I want to talk about is change to Picture Smart. Everyone who's been running JAWS over the past year or so realizes that we came out with a great feature called Picture Smart, which allows you to have photographs, JPEGs or whatever it might be, save them onto your computer, move to that file. You can do an insert space for the layered, hit P for Picture Smart, hit F for file. It'll analyze that picture and it will give you a description of it in great detail. We've made modifications to this feature because there were a few things it didn't do that it will be able to do now. One, it was not able to really do a good job if there was a photograph on a web page. And this was one of the most sought after changes to the feature after we released it, was that they're on a Facebook page, for instance, and there's a photograph on the page, and they don't want to have to download the photo and save it. They just want to be able to get access to it. You'll be able to do that now. I believe it's going to be insert space P and the letter C if you're on the item that's on the page. It's like a control. It's seen like a control, and that's where I think the C comes from. Read the help, and it'll define it, tell you exactly how to do that. But you should be able to get access to those photos there. The other change, or the second change that we've done in Picture Smart, is there's a couple of services that we're using, Microsoft and Google, to be able to describe these photos for you. By default, Picture Smart is going to just use the Microsoft service, which gives a pretty good description, should be a fraction faster if we just use the one, and I think you'll get enough information from it. There'll also be a link in the results of the Picture Smart description, which will allow you to get more. So if you think there could be a better description, or you're just not getting enough information and you want to see if Google services would offer you more, there'll be a link there for more, and you can press it and it'll send it back, and it'll get you more results. You can also choose to do these things right from the context menu, and you can select the basic or the more results, and there is a keystroke to be able to let you add in a shift key, I believe, to the command, and it will get you all the results instead of just the Microsoft results right from the get-go. So watch for that. The third area that we've changed for Picture Smart involves foreign language. So traditionally with Picture Smart, it's only been able to get an English localization of the description of the picture. And starting in 2021, we're starting to tap into this for other languages. Dutch, German, Spanish, French in particular are using services in conjunction with Microsoft to be able to get those descriptions. So if your version of JAWS or Fusion, for instance, is a German version, and you do Picture Smart on an item, you should be able to get back now a German description of it. Now, we're also going to do this for other languages, but we're not going to be using anything from the Microsoft service because they don't offer that yet. I believe the way this is working is it's going to do a machine language lookup translation of it. So it may or may not be perfect, but we're going to give it a shot and see how it works. And we welcome the feedback from those of you who are using other languages to let us know how you think it's working. So that's Picture Smart. Watch for that. Again, it's a great feature, especially for those of us at home that are dealing with a lot of photographs from people who would like to have some access to it. And the nice thing is that once you know what the picture is supposed to be, you can associate a name with it so that you'd be able to search for those pictures in the future and easily find them. Another one I had mentioned earlier is the OCR text with Convenient OCR directly into a Microsoft Word document rather than the results viewer where you would then have to select it, copy, open up Word and paste it. Now you can just have it sent directly into Word. You can again do this from a file, from a Pearl camera image or a flatbed scanner image. And you may want to listen into the FS cast here coming up shortly. Glenn will demonstrate that and explain it in some detail. We'll also be putting out some training material from Freedom Scientific that will assist on that. And then one other pretty significant new change feature that we're going to try, and this is an introductory feature. We're not done yet, but we're rolling it out, and we're going to let people get started, and it's called our new voice assistant. This is a, many of us at least have computers with microphones now, especially all of us on the Zoom calls. We all have microphones. We all have the ability to speak with our computer. And like we have the ability to speak with Alexa at home and ask Alexa things, we're going to now be able to ask JAWS or Zoom Text questions. We're going to ask it to be able to change something within JAWS or Zoom Text. So, for instance, if you wanted to get into command search, you'd be able to ask JAWS to launch command search or find a JAWS command, and it will put you in the feature where you can then type. In the future, it's going to be able to let you do a series of things. So you'll be able to say something like, JAWS, what's the command? And then for blah, blah, blah. And it will be able to bring up the command search for what you're looking for, and instantly give you the results so that you can then go and find it. You'll be able to do things like ask JAWS what time it is. So you don't have to, if you don't remember the keystroke, to be able to have it announce the time. At any moment, you'd be able to just ask it to do that. Now, there'll be a wake word. And I believe one of the defaults, at least to start, is going to be Sharky, but that may be changing. But so you would say Sharky, and it would be listening for that word, and it would wake up, and now it's ready to respond. It'll play a little sound to let you know, and then you would give it the command. And then it takes that information, and it will send it to the cloud, out into the internet, and it gets processed somewhere. And that processing comes back as a translated string that JAWS is aware of, and it can then perform the script or the function in JAWS to be able to do what you were attempting to do. So all of this processing does not happen on your computer. All of this information isn't built into JAWS on your computer. It all happens up in the cloud. So this is taking advantage of some of these new technologies that they're creating and putting them into your Access technology so that you can start to benefit from some of these things. So watch for Voice Assistant. It's one of those, again, introductory features that will probably continue to grow and evolve. Now, one thing it is not, and people will ask this, it is not designed as something like drag and dictate. It's not a dictation software. It is strictly to be able to perform some command within our software at this point. So watch for that, read about it, and experiment with it. If you've got a microphone, it should work just fine. Now, if you run with a Bluetooth headset, I will let you know that there are some issues with Bluetooth headsets using this feature and causing a problem with JAWS speech at the same time. So I believe that you'll want to use a USB connected headset or the USB connected microphone or the microphone built into your computer to perform this. And if while you might use a Bluetooth headset for one thing and also have a microphone built into the computer, right now there isn't a way to assign that to JAWS. In the future, we'll look at allowing you to set up the voice assistant so it automatically goes straight to the microphone that you select. That's not there yet, but that'll probably come in the future. So just a word of warning, if you run into some issues and you're using a Bluetooth headset, that's what it's about. You might want to try not using the Bluetooth headset to experiment with it. So that's the new voice assistant. Watch for that. That'll be in public beta 1 as well. And there'll be a lot of commands in the write-up, things that you'll be able to see what to try. Should I pause there?
Yeah, some very exciting things coming in the 2021 beta, so I think that's great. I'm just very conscious there's a lot of messages in chat, there's a lot of hands still raised, and I'm going to ask people that if your question doesn't get answered today, can you please, because I know this is a very popular session, can you please send an email to sales@sightandsound.co.uk with the question, and it'll get passed on to us, and then if we don't answer it, we'll send it to Eric. If we can't answer it,
we'll try and get those answered.
I'm just conscious we're not going to get through everything today. So I think, Carl, we might get back, try to get through some more of the raised hands, because there's lots of people who've been here for quite a while with their hands raised. And we will do our absolute best. But if you don't get your question answered by the end of today, please just email it to sales@sightandsound.co.uk so that we can get those followed up as soon as we can.
I'm going to need the privileges back again, Stuart. Sorry, I had to restart my computer.
Nice to have you back, Carl. Nice to have you back.
Thank you. I got a full shutdown.
It happens at the most inopportune times.
I know, doesn't it just?
Someone asked a question about enable to insert emojis in the panel. When you do the Windows plus period, JAWS was not reading that emoji panel. That is fixed. It should be in the 2021 and the next 2020 update that we'll do. I'm sure we'll get that one in as well.
And it's an interesting question, because I think somebody else asked a similar question in the chat and said there seems to be a number of ways to insert those, because I use Windows and semicolon. So I think a few different key combinations work. So Carl, do we want to go to the hands?
I need my permissions.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you your permissions. I'll start the hands while I'm doing that. So the next hand is Cathal Joyce, and I'm going to unmute Cathal, and you should be able to speak, I hope.
Hello.
Yes. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Got you.
Cool. I just have a few, well, it's all related to kind of focus issues that I seem to have with JAWS. Now, I've been using Zoom Text for many years, and I currently use JAWS and sometimes Zoom Text and or Fusion, depending on what I'm doing. And I've noticed I've upgraded to JAWS 2020 lately, so everything's up to date. I'm very current that way with Windows and everything. But focus in JAWS 2020 is not as good as 2018. It's really frustrating. Maybe because I'm sort of new-ish the last 3 years or so to JAWS, I find these things more irritating than long-term users. But like when I'm alt-tabbing between Microsoft Word and Chrome at the moment, I'm studying a course that's online. And when I go to write notes in Word and go back to Chrome, JAWS has lost its place and the quick navigation keys have turned off. So I can't press H to get to the headings to even get back down sort of quicker to where I should. I seem to have to keep pressing Insert and Z to get that to reactivate. I've just noticed a lot of focus issues with if you delete a file just out of Windows Explorer, I get lost focus, press Alt-Tab. If the JAWS update window, when that comes up, that seems to be out of focus as well. It'll tell you, an update is available, you hit Y, next thing it just stops speaking. Now, I suppose, look, I'm just thinking of other people who can't see the screen. I can see the outline of the box, so I know it's there. But there seems to be a lot of what I would call productivity barriers, small little niggling bugs and things that to me are far more frustrating, really frustrating, and just get in the way of just trying to get your work and your job done. I'm just wondering, is there a chance that they can be addressed in newer releases of JAWS? Because as I say, I'm very disappointed with the upgrade. I've gone back to JAWS 2018 because it retains focus better. And actually another thing in PDF documents, and I asked my friend about this and she has the same problem. When you're reading down through PDF, JAWS will randomly, for no apparent reason, jump back up 5, 6, 7 lines in a paragraph, so you completely lose your space. And it happens in multiple documents that are perfectly formatted, but it's really, really frustrating.
Yeah, so believe me, when somebody has these kind of issues, this is the top on our list. These are the kinds of things that we absolutely have to solve. And there's many developers that work in our organization that work on this product that are users of the product as well. So they would be experiencing the same things. So this is an area that we would really remain focused on. And I can't imagine the difference between 2018 and 2020. And I don't hear these kind of complaints from others necessarily about 2020. And I'm not saying they don't exist. And I know that they exist for you. You're clearly passionate and know what you're talking about. And you are experiencing these. But we should definitely be trying to get to the bottom of it. Can you send me an email? And one of the things I mentioned, WinVer, would you just double check and tell me exactly what version of Windows 10 you're running?
Yeah, I did actually did that earlier because you mentioned it earlier on, and I checked it out. So I'm completely, it's the 8th.
You're up
the
to date on
2020,
2004. You're running
2004, and even in Office, I manually check the updates because I've noticed.
And you do 365.
I do 365, yeah.
Okay.
And I've noticed actually, just for anybody, sometimes even though Office says it automatically updates, I've noticed sometimes when I've gone to say update now, it hasn't. It updates then. Just if anybody wants to, manually check that their Office is actually updated, because I've noticed that it doesn't seem to always do it by itself.
Right.
But I have all of those things triple checked because I wanted to be sure that when I was going to talk to you, that I actually had everything nailed down.
So if you can find steps that if I do it in this fashion, it always goes wrong, that would be really useful. If this is something that these things occur 2-3 times a day when you're working, and it's
multiple
random,
times, yeah.
Those are the hard things to track down. But I would be happy. Drop me an email, edamery@vispero.com. Make sure you put a good subject line in there to capture my attention. And this is a bad week for me. I'm not going to be around email too much, so I'm going to have a lot of things backed up. But if you don't hear back from me within a week, maybe ping me again. But I would like to get connected with you so I can get someone in development or support talking with you. Okay?
Cool. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Right, we're going to run quickly on to Dean Mills. Dean, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Is that, you can hear me now?
Yeah, we can indeed. Yeah, your question, please.
Quick question about the Surface Pro X. I've got one here. Now, I know obviously it doesn't run JAWS right now. Will it ever run JAWS or not?
That's a good question. I think there is a likelihood that it will. We are looking at that possibility. Now, magnification is going to be a bit more tricky.
Yeah.
To try and get magnification software to work with it. So I don't know. I don't have a time frame yet as to when we will be able to get that. For those of you who don't know, Surface Pro X is, they used to have a version of Windows called Windows 10S, and now they've come out with the Surface Pro X, and it runs a new type of processor that's not an Intel based. And in order for Windows applications, not just ours, but many, to be able to work in this, they have to be recompiled to work on that style processor. And we have not done that development work yet. And once we're done, I'm not sure if there are going to be some limitations with it. So this is not a device I would recommend that anyone go out and purchase yet if they're trying to use our technology to function within Windows 10. I think in the US, I saw that the Surface Pro X's start at around 800 or 900 US, and they go up from there. But I would suggest that you try and stick to a full-blown version of Windows 10 for the time being.
And the other real quick question, because I know we got not long, was Word. I noticed this recently. If I go into Settings Center from Word, there's a definite freeze up. So if I open, say, Word, like I was trying before what you said about the keystrokes, about muting the space bar, it worked, but there's definitely a freeze in there in Office 365.
And so if you make that happen on demand, yes, write that down and send it in through support. You can send it in through Sight and Sound. But make sure that they know to get that escalated. If you've got the steps to reproduce it,
I do, yeah, it's consistent too.
We should be able to get that reproduced and fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Those are the easy ones. Thanks.
Brilliant. Cheers, Dean. Right, just move on to the next one. Oren, it's all yours. Oren.
There you are.
Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Hi, Eric. Won't keep you too long. I've only got about 50 or 60 questions. Two very quick questions. One is, can I disable the Outlook notifications that JAWS is throwing out? So every time I get an email, it's giving me a synopsis of that email. And the second one is to do with Dictionary Manager in the, well, not just in the default mode, but in the Dictionary Manager. If I'm typing in, let's say I want to change, the abbreviation is AOB for any other business,
Mm-hmm.
and I make that change, it's not invoking that command when I write AOB in a Word document or Notepad or anything like that.
So the dictionary one first. If you made the dictionary rule, you got to make sure that you're making it in your default dictionary file.
Yeah, I am.
Not an application file.
No.
If you've made it in the default one, it should definitely carry over wherever you go when you type that in. I don't know if it's tied to capitalization. It should not be. I think this would probably be a good one for support. Take your dictionary file, demonstrate the AOB if you think it's supposed to work, then sending that JDF file, JAWS dictionary file, which you would find in your user settings, and the support team can help you find that, and ask them to try it. And the support people should be able to try it out as well. And if it doesn't work, send it into development. We'll try and find out why. I can't imagine. The notifications in Outlook, this is actually a setting in Outlook that I think you want to turn those off. And I think most people like to turn them off. They're very disruptive. Even as a sighted person, I don't like to get those notifications. If I'm working on something, I don't want to necessarily be distracted by email because it is very distracting and I can't help myself. I end up in my email all day and I don't get a task done. So that is a setting, is something in Outlook that you have to go find to turn off. And I can't tell you exactly where it is, but I know it's there because I've had a...
Can I just
Yes.
add in there?
Yes.
Because there was something in Windows 2004, actually, when you get the notification, you can actually then go into your Windows Action Center, Windows A, and go to that notification, and you've got an option for the settings. I think if you tab around, there's actually the settings, and you can turn them off there, as opposed to going into Outlook and trying to find where you turn off notifications. And I think you can probably go back in and turn them back on. So you go Windows A. So if you get a notification, Windows A to the Action Center, and just tab to that notification, find the settings there, and it'll give you a drop-down menu where you can turn them off there and then.
And then also in the 2021 release, I just went back to look at my notes because I thought we had this in already. So in the 2021 public beta, when it comes out, by default, JAWS will automatically announce Windows-generated accessible event notifications. That isn't necessarily the Outlook notifications, I don't think, but that's Windows notifications. And those get announced automatically in speech and braille, but you can, they are also in Microsoft Office, so this could be the Outlook stuff too. So if you don't want to hear these announcements, it says to go into the Settings Center. Again, this is in 2021. Go into the Settings Center and clear something called Enable Accessible Notification Events checkbox. So that's a new feature that you should see in 2021 that may take care of that for you.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Eric.
Yep.
Brilliant. Oren, right. Stuart Beveridge. It's all yours, Stuart.
Hi guys, am I unmuted?
You are indeed.
Sounding good.
Hiya. Just a really quick couple of questions. Eric, you actually beat me to it. I've had my hand up for a while regarding the voice assistant. First question, just what you were saying about Dragon. Is dictation something that you have a plan for? Obviously, it's early stages with the voice assistant, but is the dictation something that you are hoping to include in the future? It's just that this is something I feel that this has been a long time coming, so I hope you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no, I don't mind you asking. So with the fact that we're doing this out of the cloud, dictation would be, the responsiveness you're going to see is not where you would expect it to be. So in order to do dictation properly, you really need to have it you really need to have the stuff installed directly onto your PC. So I can't imagine when we're ever going to have the processing power and the internet connections to be able to really be responsive and do dictation out of the cloud. So no, I don't think that that's the direction that we're going to head with this. I do think this is going to be. It's going to be more about. It'll be more about navigation. It'll be more about getting something set up that you don't do all the time. So if for somebody out there who, and just to reiterate on the dictation, so this is in the event that you do not have access to be able to touch type, or if you're just a very slow typer and you want to get into dictation, I would definitely direct you into a Dragon solution. JSay, Hartgen Consultancy does a JSay solution and has been out there for years, and that's really the dictation solution you want to head to.
Yeah, JSay or JDictate possibly.
Yes,
Yep, thanks, Eric. Just one more quick question on the sorry, not the dictation, the voice assistant. I have obviously a clear Scottish accent. Is it going to be fine with different accents?
So that's a great question, and it's done in our preliminary testing, and we've done some not with the Scottish accent, but we've done some with other languages. It seems to be pretty good, and it kind of learns. So I believe we can put many words out there that you guys might have a different word for something than someone speaking in the U.S. would have a word for. So we're going to be able to analyze some of this stuff, capture it, and make modifications to improve upon it. So if we can continue to find out what people are asking, if it's not working, we'll be able to see, oh, they asked this, they asked this, they asked this, then they asked it this way, and they got it to happen. So enough of that will happen, and I think it can improve. We can improve upon it in the future, so that if we see a word that's being used or a phrase that's being used to get something done, it's like make bigger, or increase zoom level, or make it larger. For magnification software, that's exactly how it will work. We'll be able to see what people are asking and get some of those things in there. So I'll be interested to hear how the Scottish accent handles it.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to help, Eric, and really excited about this feature. So thank you very much again.
Great.
Yes, Stuart, thank you. Andrew Summers again.
Hello, Eric.
Hi, Andrew.
See you again. I've got a quick problem with my Outlook in JAWS 2020 latest build. I've had it during the whole of 2020. When you're in the list view of all your emails, I got about 300 in my inbox. But at the top, when I'm doing the command insert tab, say I'm at the top, it would say it would say what the email is, the time, the date, and all that. But it will say like 1 of 17, and it will keep, and I'll keep going down.
And you have 300.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's happening there, and I don't know what the answer is, but I can tell by what you're saying. What's happening is the insert tab is only reporting what is visible on the screen opposed to what's in your inbox.
Yeah.
So maximize your window, make sure that it's maximized.
Oh, which it is.
And so I don't know what the answer to this one is. I have to go and try this and experiment with it, but
Yeah.
write it up, send it in. It's a good
Mhm.
one for support to try and get you an answer on.
Okay.
And if you shift tab out of your inbox and then tab back to it, it always reports correctly.
No, it still says, but I
It
do
all
is,
so you know there's 300, but it never tells you
yeah.
there's 300.
No,
Okay, so
only
write
when
that
I
up.
go, when I do control tab into the list of my folders,
Mm-hmm.
then I go to my inbox and it will say like 300 in there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not sure what the answer is on this one. I had to do some testing with it myself, but bring it up with support because we should not be reporting the wrong number to you.
No.
If we can't get the right number, we shouldn't be saying the wrong one.
I wonder if there was something in the number processing in the center, in the settings center that I could change.
No, I don't think so. And that's something we should be able to get right. Microsoft should be providing us that information, so we should be reading it from the API. We shouldn't be trying to do anything from the screen. So
no.
Okay.
Okay then. All right.
Thanks,
okay,
Andrew.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yep.
Thank you, Andrew. Just going to quickly, Adara.
And this might be the last question, folks, because we're gone nearly 10 minutes over, and I'm conscious of Eric's time because Eric has another engagement. So we're going to wrap it up, I think, after this one.
There's Adara.
Adara,
hello.
how are you?
Hi there.
I'm fine, thank you. Hi, Eric. Hi, Stuart.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I have a quick question. It's based on Office 365. There is talk of obviously with 365 you can edit online. Is there going to be a way that you can edit using JAWS? Because at the moment there is. Well, we've been looking. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, and I have been trying to look at ways, but we're not quite sure how to approach it.
Yeah, so this is something, and this is clearly something we need help from Microsoft to make sure they get it right. And I think this is something they're targeting because their objective is to get everybody to be just running it all from the cloud and not have to install stuff. So there's some work going on there. If you can experiment with Narrator on some of that and see if you start to see Narrator working better, we should also. And this is an area that I'm sure we're going to put some focus on. But right now, I mean, really, Google Docs is still the best collaboration solution, I think, out there via the cloud to be able to really work with a document that's out there. But I think Office 365 will get there. I still install, and I would recommend everybody install it for the time being.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lara, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to wrap this session up, and Eric, as always, you've run a wonderful session for us, and I think we could have kept going for another 2 hours, but conscious of everybody's time. Just Sharon has reminded me there's still lots of really good stuff in the chat. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to link your username to your email address, so there's no guarantee we'd answer the right question in the chat if we did this afterwards. So if you put a question in the chat that wasn't answered, and we do apologize if that happened, can you please send it into sales@sightandsound.co.uk, where it will be forwarded to us, and we will either answer it ourselves or we'll pass it on. Okay, so please, if your question wasn't answered, do send it in, or if you're listening on the podcast and you have a question, please send it into sales@sightandsound.co.uk. Eric, thanks a million for coming along today. I do hope, well, we're definitely going to have you back, I hope, in the not too distant future. And all the best with the upcoming release of JAWS 2021. Thanks, as always, to Carl and Sharon for their help today. We're back next week with more Google goodness. Until then, from Stuart Lawler, stay safe and stay well, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.